Johnny Bravo, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Mr. Rogers, Family Matters, Proud Family, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Schoolhouse Rock, The Burger King Kids Club. If these pieces of media and entertainment were made in today's time, would Republicans and conservatives be shouting and screaming that they're woke, trying to get them canceled? Well, many on the internet are saying yes, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Guys, before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe. Now, today's video came to me because I saw a clip on X that went viral saying, essentially, if a cartoon like this was made today, people would be calling it woke and trying to get it canceled. Now, this was said in reference to an old show called Johnny Bravo, which me and many others watched on Cartoon Network when we were younger. Now, if you're not familiar with Johnny Bravo is like this buff, blonde guy who was like a greaser type who in his cartoon just gets to lead the life of this like super masculine guy. Now for this clip, Johnny Bravo is turned into a woman and gets to experience what a female life is like.
Man, you're hot.
Ew. He should try that brushing the tongue thing.
Nakilala na kita, diba?
What?
Bonjour, mon petit ajou.
Where are all these guys coming from?
Tu manques espace.
Now this is crazy.
Your name must be Destiny, because Destiny is in my future.
That's enough! My name's not Destiny! It's Jenny!
Okay, so there you have it. This clip goes on to have Jenny Bravo and a group of other girls sing a song about how girls are smart and should value their brains and value their education, and men should be able to see that within them rather than just making them into sexual objects. Now, the reply to this that got nearly 200,000 likes on X says, you know, people don't like to admit this, but older cartoons they grew up with were woke and discuss social issues like this, and were very on the nose about it. Again, 200,000 likes on this particular post. Now, would I consider a clip like this to be woke? No. And I'll get into why in just a moment, but I want to show you some other examples. You guys will know Schoolhouse Rock. I watched it in school. Many of you probably watched it in school. Here's a clip about the Great American Melting Pot.
My grandfather had his father's cap he brought from Italy. They'd heard about a country where life might let them win. They paid the fare to America and there they melted in. A lovely lady Liberty with her book of recipes and the finest one she's got is the Great American Melting Pot. The Great American Melting Pot.
Okay, now that's the Great American Melting Pot. I think it's so funny if we show the ingredients. It says Armenians, Africans, English, Dutch, Italians, Chinese, Poles, Irish, all mixed together in the Great American Melting Pot, which is a wonderful message. And again, not a message that I would consider woke. But of course, somebody responded to this and said Republicans today would call this woke and ban it from being played in schools. Now, the same has been said about movies like The Green Mile. Somebody said people would call this woke if it came out now. That got 43,000 likes on it. After somebody posted by 1999, racism in America was virtually gone, and they attributed that to things like The Cosby Show, Family Matters, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and Michael Jordan playing for the Chicago Bulls. Somebody responded and said, if this happened today, y'all would be calling these people/shows woke. Now, before we get into more examples, I figured we should sort of respond to this idea that these shows and pieces of media would be called woke in today's time. It's my opinion that they would in no way, shape, or form be accused of being woke. There would be no cancellation train for these pieces of media because these pieces of media actually represent something that is true. When we looked at that Johnny Bravo clip, they are talking about a very truthful aspect of what it is to live life as a woman. And that is something that up until that point in the cartoon, Johnny Bravo had not considered or experienced. The reason woke people today are saying that these old clips are woke is because the woke have co-opted the idea of gender equality, and they've actually shifted and changed it into this new gender equity thing, which is a total mess. But I think they need to be reminded that they are not the owners of these conversations about gender equality or even the Great American Melting Pot as we saw it in the Schoolhouse Rock episode. These conversations conversations have been present and clear and multifaceted and multi-partied for quite some time, but I feel as though woke people have come in and grabbed these ideas of empathy or a melting pot or gender equality or racial representation and taken them and say, we own this as woke individuals and we are the arbiters of this conversation. Therefore, if you ever see this conversation being had in the past, present, or future, we take ownership for that. And you don't have ownership of it. And the reason we talk about woke media and entertainment, we are not using examples like The Cosby Show, Family Matters, and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, is because these shows were having truthful conversations. They were true representations of Black culture and that mix with American culture in itself. They were actually having conversations about racial discrimination and the different ways in which one could view that particular issue. They weren't muting or tamping down different sides of the conversation. They weren't trying to be something that wasn't truthful. And these shows resonated so much with the American population and with American culture because they had some semblance of truth within them. Now, when we watch these sort of woke TV shows that are created today, we can see they've been infiltrated by propaganda and the towing the line of a certain ideology. Shows like Family Matters and Fresh Prince would bring forth, say, a racial issue and actually have an open and upfront discussion about it where multiple sides of the issue were represented. And in today's time, woke media presents an issue to you from one side and tells you exactly how to feel about it. And even worse than that, woke media tells you that if you disagree, you are a bad person. But nonetheless, this idea that these old pieces of media were woke is super pervasive. I saw this little picture that went viral that says, PBS didn't become woke, you grew up to be a bad person, with a bunch of PBS characters smiling on it. And this got, 70,000 likes on X? Featured on this graphic is the Magic School Bus, Barney, the guy from Reading Rainbow, Mr. Rogers, which if you think Mr. Rogers was woke, I have something to show you.
Boys are boys from the beginning. Girls are girls right from the start. Everybody's fancy, everybody's fine. Your body's fancy, and so is mine.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the whole woke thing. And just for the fun of it, I'm going to show you some more examples of this. Today, we would call this woke phenomenon. I guess is what I'm going to call it. Here's a poster that was posted of the Burger King Kids Club and all of their little characters. And somebody said, people today would call this woke. Oh, and I find this funny because I guess they're just assuming it because there's representation in this image. There's an Asian kid, there is a Black kid, and there's a kid in a wheelchair. Although the kid in a wheelchair, his name is Wheels. So I'm not sure how woke that actually is. The Asian kid is called Lingo, which is just a few steps below the whole Cho Chang thing in Harry Potter, if you ask me. But what you have here is an actual snapshot of what American children were like at the time. And the Burger King Kids Club and whoever created that, they're very much aware of that. To have representation of different people from different backgrounds and different experiences is not to automatically label yourselves as woke. In fact, woke representation in today's time feels so forced. This push for diversity and equity and inclusion could not be further away from the true real representation we were getting in the days of the Burger King Kids Club. Even though you have things like the nerdy kid being called IQ, which is a little on the nose, this is representation nonetheless, and it's real representation just because it's real. I don't know how else to put it. They're not placing a person in it to tell you how to feel, to tell you what to accept, to tell you how things should be. They place these characters where they are and created them in the way they did because it's how things are. Here's another one from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it's a screenshot of one of the characters named Toph. Now it says, if a show was released today where a disabled girl dominated 90% of fights she was in, was never a love interest to anyone, and actually taught the male protagonist 25% of his combat skill set, they'd call it woke propaganda. Anyway, her name is Toph. Now, to respond, we could be calling this woke propaganda today. In all of the conversations we're having about media, entertainment, and Hollywood, we're giving ample examples of when wokeness is at the forefront of the creation of a project, and yet this has not come up. The reason we aren't using this as an example is because it's not an example of wokeness. The person who created Avatar: The Last Airbender and the character Toph was truly invested in the story itself, was invested in something that could transcend time, that could become a classic topic that had mixed in it some universal truths, as well as hardships like that of being disabled, like that of constantly having to fight and be in combat. And the reason Toph is not a woke character is because she wasn't made to be one. And we have a really interesting example with Avatar: The Last Airbender, because Netflix recently made a live action version of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and guess what? The original creators of the show stepped down and separated from the project due to creative differences. So that should tell you all you need to know about how true universal messaging translates to the woke modern audience era. And if that's not landing for you, let me show you an actual example where you can see the difference in the creation of the same show. When I was a kid, I used to watch The Proud Family, and I was so obsessed with Penny and the Blue Sisters and the whole little family dynamic that existed with the Proud Family. And this was a prime example of Black representation, not only in media, but in children's media. And I grew up as a biracial child watching this Black family in a neighborhood full of different people with different races who were mixing with one another and sharing culture with one another. It was real representation. Recently, the team of the Proud Family show did this whole Black History Month special, and I'm going to show you a clip from that.
This country was built on slavery, which means slaves built this country. Tilled this land from sea to sea to sea. First there was rice, tobacco, sugar cane. Then Whitney did his thing and cotton became king. Continue to build this. Slaves built this country. And we, the descendants of slaves in America, have earned reparations for their suffering. And continue to earn reparations every moment we spend submerged in the systemic prejudice, racism, and white supremacy that America was founded with and still has not atoned for. Slaves!
Like, what? Okay. So, back when I'm watching Proud Family as a kid, I'm watching a Black family that's integrated in American society, and you're watching them, talk to people of other races, share culture, this, that, and the third. And now, for this modern audience, they're talking about how slaves built this country and we're owed reparations and we're living an endless life of discrimination. What changed? Wokeness is what changed. You had something that was real. It was real representation. It was true diversity. It was a real fictional discussion. And then wokeness is injected into it, which really means an injection of propaganda and dogma and ideology. And suddenly the show is telling you what to think. It's telling you how to feel. It's giving this forced representation of Black issues and Black culture, and none of it lands. And suddenly, where you once had a show that could be watched by all American families, both conservative and Democrat, you have a show where conservatives and Republicans are going like, wait a minute, this is woke garbage. I'm not going to show this to my children. And this happened with endless projects all over the place. I can give you example after example after example. There is a reason. There is a sort of a line in American history where we can see the broad infiltration of wokeness into our media and entertainment and into the Hollywood space in general, and why we can look back on these shows, which will have truthful elements and lessons in them, and say, those are not woke and these are. I saw this post go up that said, sometimes I think Disney was more inclusive when it wasn't trying so hard to be, and I could not agree more. And on this post, you see projects like The Emperor's New Groove and Lilo and Stitch and Princess and the Frog. And these are moments where forced diversity was not the number one priority at Disney and Pixar and all of these major media studios and outlets. They were just trying to tell stories that landed with an audience. And so many of these old cartoons and pieces of entertainment are going to be timeless classics that feature real representation of white people, brown people, Black people, people of all backgrounds and experiences, because the focus was not necessarily to just throw at the forefront this particular background. It was to take people from this background and tell their stories, whether fictionalized or real stories. And when you focus on the story itself and build around in that story themes and lessons and moral values that one can suck out of the piece of media that they are consuming, you can make something that's real. But when you're trying to make a piece of entertainment and it is all about this sort of contrived, almost contrarian, moralistic beat down of the audience to tell them exactly what to think, exactly how to feel, and to tell them, if you disagree with me, I hate you and you're a bad person, you actually lose the storyline, and guess what? Your show has become woke. So no, Mr. Rogers and PBS and old school Disney and Family Matters and the Proud Family, these are not woke projects, at least in their original essence. Unfortunately, many of them may have become ones, as we've seen with the Proud Family and, say, the recreation of Lilo and Stitch and other projects like it, but they were not originally. And when we go back and we watch these projects and we see the beautiful lessons that are interwoven in these storylines, and we see these messages of empathy and inclusion and representation, and we see discussions of different backgrounds and their experiences, one could very basically think that these are woke projects, or they could ask themselves, where are woke projects going wrong? Because if this is the true message you want to share, guess what, babe? It's not a woke one. Woke shows of today have lost the idea of real natural representation. They've lost their footing in reality and in conversation, which is a tennis match between two parties where we can go back and forth and we're allowed ample space to respond, even if the other person shoots down what we say. And they're so obsessed with this oppressed framework where everything is black and white, good and bad. We're not actually getting a true dose of reality and what the world is like. And I think the mistake that's being made here, and why some of these older projects are being called woke, or people are saying Republicans and conservatives would want to cancel these projects, is because the woke have co-opted ideas of empathy and tolerance and kindness and inclusivity and representation. So now whenever anybody sees an example of this, they immediately attribute it to wokeness. At least that's what's happening on the left. And I think the wake-up call needs to be happening right now, that you guys do not own ideas of kindness, tolerance, representation, respect, unity, that in fact these ideas have been circulating for all of human existence, and particularly within the American cultural lexicon. The woke does not own kindness or tolerance or any of these things. So when you see ideas like this circulating in older projects, just know that that doesn't automatically make them woke. These values predate wokeness, and they are ever present throughout so many different pieces of media that if I showed you as many as I could think of, this video would be hours and hours long. And there's a reason we can look at these old pieces of media and see that they truly work. And we're never going to refer to things like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or Family Matters or Full House or Avatar: The Last Airbender as woke projects. They just simply aren't. And you don't have to take my word for it. We can allow another test to sort of filter out all of these different pieces of entertainment, and that will be the test of time. The shows that I've spoken about in this video are going to stand the test of time. Many of them are timeless classics that have cemented their little spots within American cultural history, and they are always going to be there because they weren't focused on woke messaging, on towing the line of ideology, on injecting dogma into your mind so that when you walked away from the show, you believed a certain thing. They were interested in truth. They were interested in conversation. They were interested in showing you a slice, albeit fictional, of something that was a conversation, and a true conversation. And no piece of woke media today is actually invested in true conversation, and it will never stand the test of time. These little pieces will come out, they'll have their flash in the pan, if they even get that, and they will be forgotten, even if they share the name of some of these older projects like Avatar: The Last Airbender or the new Lilo and Stitch, as I mentioned earlier. They will not last. They will not last because good stories last. They will not last because truth lasts. They will not last because woke doesn't last. So if you find yourself watching a piece of older entertainment and you're thinking, this might be considered woke now, there is a chance you could be right, but there is also a good chance that you could be wrong because it hasn't been called woke now, and there is a reason for that. At least that's my case in this video, and those are my thoughts on this idea that these older pieces of entertainment would be called woke and canceled today. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know. As always, if you disagree with anything I said in this video, duke it out with you so respectfully. I encourage healthy debate on this channel. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video for you guys, which is every day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.